Welcome back to the Meniere's Muse podcast, a place where fellow vestibular warriors on various journeys share their struggles, obstacles they've overcome, and ones they continue to live with. Through their stories, we found inspiration and motivation to live our best lives around these symptoms. I'm your host, Heather Davies. As I learned to navigate my vestibular world and live my best life, I wanted to make sure you know you are not alone. Welcome to the show, everyone. I wanted to have today's guest on for quite some time. His message is unique and raw, and many of you may have heard his story, or at the very least, his mission. If not, let me tell you a little bit about Steve Schwier. Steve's life as a heavy equipment operator and professional musician came to a screeching halt when he began experiencing tinnitus in 2011, and he was diagnosed with Meniere's in 2012. He had no idea it was the beginning of a new life. A life that is now disabling on many levels. The onset of chronic dizziness, vertigo, nausea, hyperacusis, nystagmus, loss of balance, and the emotional roller coaster that left him lost in a world of vestibular disorders. 3 years ago, he decided to fight back in a way that captured the attention of many. He created On the Vertigo, a nonprofit to raise awareness and funds for research. This has included 2 1,400-mile bike rides, successful golf outings for research, and many other projects to raise awareness. He even co-authored a book, On the Vertigo, with his brother Dave. He was a cast member on the docuseries The Life Rebalanced Chronicles, sponsored by Vita and produced by Unfixed Media. On top of all this, he also has a podcast called On the Verta Show, co-hosted with Adrian Smith and produced by his brother Dave. His biggest loss over these years was his love of music and being able to play with his condition. He is learning to love his passion again. Today he shares his true self in this interview, and I instantly felt a connection with him, and I hope you do too. His book On the Vertigo chronicles the first of 2 1,400-mile bike rides he took on his e-bike. I couldn't put his book down, it was riveting. I found myself crying, cheering him on, and I felt so much of what he shared deeply. His Meniere's monster is real, and even though it attacked many times during his ride, it didn't stop him from embracing this very personal challenge he'll share with you today. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Thank you for being here. Please welcome Steve. So cool. Well, thank you so much for being here, Steve. I appreciate it. And I wanted, if you could start off by tell me a little bit about how your vestibular journey started.
It probably started way before I thought it did, because once I got diagnosed, I could kind of look back in the past and be like, oh, there was a day I felt like I had the flu, but it was probably a mild vertigo attack. Right. Like years before, like I'm talking in my 20s and early 30s. But when I turned 45, which is the average age for Meniere's to hit people, is when I had the ringing start in my ear. And like I say in my book, I was at a friend's birthday party, and my left ear just started ringing like crazy, like so loud out of nowhere. And I thought it was just a one-off thing. And it rang for about a year, and that's all I had. So I went to my doctors, and they're just like, well, you just have tinnitus and it'll probably never go away. And it was torturous. And one of my specialists I went to, which I went to many to figure out my diagnosis, said, well, at least it's not progressing to the point where you're getting vertigo and dizziness and balance issues and stuff. And I'm like, what? And sure enough, a year later, after my ears started ringing, all that stuff came crashing in all at once. And then I went to a different specialist and ended up being diagnosed with Meniere's disease.
That's great.
That's how it began. It began with the ringing for about a year, and that's all I had. That was my only symptom. And
I know you're a musician. Did you have any of the tinnitus before with anything, did you experience that at all?
Not at all. Not at all. I know there's like many famous musicians, Pete Townsend of The Who, one of my idols. He's said he's lived with tinnitus for most of his musical career. But when I went, one of the first questions I asked my doctors was, did I do this to myself because of being a musician? And he's like, no, because I can look in your ear and there's no damage to your eardrum, which usually musicians that ruin their hearing, there's usually damage on the in the outer ear, where I had no damage in my outer ear. It was all my inner ear. So he said, no, it wasn't the music that created this issue. It's something bigger. It's something more. And of course, having Meniere's, you learn that there's nobody really knows the exact cause. Everybody has their theories.
Right.
And, but I quit chasing that rabbit hole a long time ago, so, but yeah, no tinnitus when I was playing on stage with speakers around and loud noise and loud bars and stuff like that and loud concert halls, nothing.
And this did put a damper on all that, right?
Yeah, and the tinnitus I could actually, after a year, I learned to live with. But when the other symptoms came in, like the hypercosis in my good ear, stuff like that, that's when my music really suffered because I just couldn't hear the music the way I wanted to. I didn't hear it in stereo. I didn't hear, my left ear is almost deaf and my right ear has hypercosis. So everything's tinny sounding. So I lost that stereo hearing that you hear in a car or at home when you turn your radio up, you get enveloped by the music where it felt like I was listening to it through an AM radio, my dad's Chevelle when we were little, the little teeny speakers that were tinny and AM radio. Like that's how I hear music now. So it just got really discouraging and I gave it up. I quit listening to music. I quit playing music. It just felt like that part was amputated from me and I just couldn't emotionally keep pursuing that at that time.
Right. That's tough.
I gave up. I basically threw in the towel and said, I'm done with music. And of course, that was a crushing blow.
Yeah. But fast forward, you have started to tinker back with it?
I have. I have. About 3 months ago, Veda contacted me along with Unfixed Media, and they wanted me to do a little short, like a 4-minute short video about my loss of music and what that meant. I don't know if you've seen that or
I
not.
haven't. I'll have to find it for sure.
Yeah, it's really good. I'll text it to you later, or
Okay.
they had me do a short about my musical journey and stuff with having Meniere's, and they connected me with a couple of musicians that wanted to contact me and ask me questions and meet up, on FaceTime and stuff and just talk about it. And after doing this short, when I rewatched it, it just kind of stirred it in me that, this is too important to just let it in the shelf. I have to try to get back into it somehow. So I'm a bass player. So I took my bass out and started playing a little bit. And it was difficult. It was really hard to do. It was hard to hear the way it sounded. I felt like I was playing things right, but it didn't sound like I was. And so the mental stuff around it was the hardest part. It wasn't the physical act of playing the music. It was hearing it right and understanding and feeling like I can do it again. And so I messing with that. And then a neighbor of mine who plays the guitar, I asked him if he wanted to play with me sometime just to see what it would be like to play with another person because your timing, you have to be in the pocket, you have to feel each other. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this or not, but would you be willing to try it with me? And he's like, yeah. He came down with severe diabetes, and so he gave up his music for over 10 years, just like I did. So we kind of both jumped back in together and did a couple open mics, and it went really well. And I'm starting to find that even though I don't hear it the same way, I'm finding a love for it again. And that's been really special. So it's just going uphill from here now. So I'm been playing out quite a bit lately and we're getting some paid gigs now. So I'm going to try to.
I love that story. How's that making you feel?
Scared to death.
Yeah.
Nervous. It's exhausting. When you're doing something you love and getting paid for it, it's not a job. When that's what I've always heard advice from was, hey, if you can find a job that you love to do, then it won't be like you're working. It's just you're
Right.
doing something you love and getting paid for it. And that's what I used to do. It was easy. It was who I was. It was something that came naturally. Where now it's more of it takes a lot more effort and it takes a lot out of me. So, I'll play for a couple hours and I have to rest after that. I have to just lay down and rest because it just the amount of mental energy it takes to do it now is it's all different.
I
But
imagine it's exhausting.
that's the scary part. But the exciting part is that I am trying to push myself to do it, and that's what matters.
Absolutely. And I know there was a long period of time where you were kind of stagnant, right?
Yes,
Can you
yes.
backtrack and tell us about that and what motivated you to, um, well, the book tells everything to take that huge journey and that leap of faith to bicycle 1,400 miles.
Yeah. Yeah, to backtrack, when I was diagnosed and my ear started ringing in 2011, and that whole year went through that. Then I got diagnosed in 2012 officially with Meniere's disease, which I had to research and discover what that is. The For man, 8, 9 years, I was just in a cave by myself. Of course, I have a wife and I have well, he was 12 when I was diagnosed, but I really went to some dark places and I just didn't know what to do. I lost jobs because of my condition. Um, I had to take lower paying jobs that paid less in order for me to continue to work, but I kept trying to fight it till the point where my doctor's like, your quality of life is going to just continue to go downhill unless you can just take care of yourself and make that your main focus. So
Yeah.
that was a crushing blow. And that was about 5 years in to my journey. So I worked for 5 years after my diagnosis, but then for 4 or 5 years, I I was just lost. I was just floating and alone and scared, and I just crawled into a hole. And I got to a point where it was so bad, I was like, I have to do something to jumpstart myself again. So the bike ride it wasn't something that I came up with that I was like, I'm going to go out and be known by people and I'm going to write a book about this and I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to start a nonprofit. The bike ride was just a thing that I chose to do because I figured I've lost music, I've lost work and everything. But what I have now is time. I
Right.
have all the time in the world to do whatever I want to do if I want to do it and if I can do it.
Right.
And what would be a challenging thing to do. So that's where the bike ride came into my mind. And I was like, if I do this, I'm doing it for myself. I'm going to do it to prove to myself that I'm not with nothing left inside of me. And
Right.
so that's when I called my brother Dave and we started brainstorming and came up. I was like, I want to do this bike ride, and he's like, well, first of all, you're crazy, and second of all, you're probably going to kill yourself. But I was determined to give it a shot, and so it didn't start out as big as it's become. It started out as a very small thing, but at the same time, I knew there was a lot of people with Meniere's disease that would probably follow it if I posted on social media. So
Right.
I think I'll just do this for myself, but I will post what I go through because when you go to a lot of Meniere sites or vestibular support groups or support groups for cancer or whatever your chronic illness is, it's either people complaining hugely about how bad their life is or everything's happy and here's how to fix yourself. And all I wanted to do was present myself as a real person with a real chronic illness doing something very real and make it real and come across real and not hide behind the the triumphs and try to make myself look good. I wanted people to see how hard this was every
It was
single day.
raw. It was very raw and vulnerable. And I found myself crying in different parts of the book because I really, Look at me. I easily cry during the book as well as during the YouTube series, and the support from your family. When I read, I'm going to read you a little clip from your book, but I love how your family supported you when you went to them with the idea of riding 1,400 miles. I mean, even your nephew,
Yeah.
when you asked him his opinion, and it was just fantastic. He said, "I guess what really matters is if he, meaning you, thinks he can make it. If he thinks he can make it, then sure, why not?" And then your dad, "I think he can do it." That is amazing to have that kind of support, knowing where you've been and in that darkness and how heavy Meniere's is weighing on you.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
that was great. I'm very, very lucky. I have a super supportive wife. My son's very supportive, and then my extended family is very supportive. And my nephew has been great. Actually, he still helps me with some stuff with on the Vertigo. Of course, my brother Dave is still, neck deep in it with me. But
mm-hmm.
my biggest fan was my dad, I think, and he had a stroke last year, and so he has become debilitated. And he was very active, very healthy. He's 79 years old, and he still was he up until a year ago he was still like repping youth basketball games and co-ed softball games, and he's running around the basketball court blowing a whistle. Like, he's always been my vision of when you're almost 80, he's still out there
Yeah.
being very active and healthy, and the stroke just knocked him to the curb. So we've had a lot of great talks in the last year because he knows what I went through. So
Mm.
he's come to me now with, how do I deal with losing all this stuff?
Yeah.
And so it's made us even closer. It's bonded us through our debilitating conditions that we live with. But he, right off the bat, it's like, yeah, go for it. He just was like, I think you can do this, and I'm there every step of the way. And of course, my mom was very supportive, and
Right.
it, and so it kind of gave them a chance to vicariously see what I could do. And I think they were all rooting for me. Whether they all believed in me, I don't know.
Right.
But
Um,
I proved to everybody I could do it.
yeah. You wrote about the darkness and the alone early morning hours.
Yeah.
Uh, and I know that those early morning hours when I was alone with my thoughts and the rest of the world slept were the toughest. So I'm just wondering how you went from that darkness to being able to push yourself through to get on that bike to ride that first 100 miles. I mean, there's got to be a mental shift somewhere, you know?
That was the biggest challenge, was the very first day. It was like, can I do this? And knowing what I was going to put my body through with my symptoms, which is the whole list of Meniere's symptoms. We don't have to get into that if you don't want
Right.
to. We all know them if you have Meniere's or have heard of it. But it, I don't know. I'm a very competitive person. I don't like to lose. I don't like to be look at myself and think that I'm weak. And at my very weakest is when I decided to do the ride, because I was like, if I mentally go more down this rabbit hole, I may never come back. So that's why I decided to do that. And the the thing that's odd to me is people think that now I'm in a great place because I've done these things. I'm not. 2 nights ago, I didn't sleep all night, and I call it the witching hours, between 2 and 5 in the morning, where I just get out of bed, come out to my front room on the couch, and I just lay here and just watch TV at night, and it's miserable. That's the thing with it being chronic and it being invisible, is that people don't see that I'm still suffering through my symptoms on a daily basis.
Right.
People, oh, there's Steve from On the Vertigo, who's done 2 bike rides, wrote a book, started a nonprofit. He's figured it out. I have not figured it out, and I probably never will, because most of the days I'm still miserable. You know.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest misconception is because because we're present and doing things out there, and this is what people see, me and you,
Yeah.
they think this is our life, and they except with your videos and how raw they were and how you were showing that true emotion, it really reminds people that we're still there. I mean, I have symptoms daily. It's just I've adapted.
Yes.
And
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that took the 8 years of doing nothing was me learning how to be dizzy every day, and not want to eat because certain foods might, I went down to a zero diet of nothing but white rice, and then started from there. And then I'd have a vertigo attack, and then you drive yourself crazy trying to figure out what was it, what did that. And it got to the point where I was like, I can't figure it out. So I just need to live with this the way it is.
Mhm.
So, but once I got through learning how to just live sick physically, I
Mhm.
think that now my biggest battle is the emotional stuff and the fatigue and the exhaustion and the brain fog and the lack of concentration. Those are the things now that are challenge me the most. Feeling like I'm not worth anything, feeling unworthy, feeling like a burden on my family, like those
Still
feelings.
struggle with that.
Yeah, those feelings that are the intangibles.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm laying on the bathroom floor and I'm crapping myself and throwing up because I'm spinning and dizzy and I'm car sick,
Right.
yeah, that guy is really sick. He's in a bad spot.
Right.
But the next day I might be feeling physically better, but emotionally that doesn't go away. That feeling that I'm still a burden is always on. That's the monkey on my back that I struggle with every day more than the physical stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's a tough one because there's a lot of there was a lot of mental work. I know that I mean I never meditated or did yoga prior to Meniere's disease. I know that it was one of the things that helped me do my soul work inside because
Mm-hmm.
I know that I had to do a lot of inner work to be
Yes.
where I am, and I still backslide.
Yeah.
I as we all do with our symptoms, but it's a continuous thing. We have to
Yeah.
be up on it all the time, or we backslide. So
And it never goes away. You wake up in the morning and the first thing you think is, I have Meniere's disease and I'm dizzy, and I'm nauseous. And that starts the second I wake up. Then I hear my ear ringing, and there's just constant reminders that all day that I am not healthy. This is a debilitating chronic illness that people just don't see and they don't understand. So when you are by yourself in your soul place, you
Mhm.
know, to be able to tell yourself it's okay, you're okay. You can make this, you're worth something.
Yep.
If you can't get to the laundry today, it's okay. I'm constantly having to tell myself that where I'm at is an okay place to be right now, depending on how I feel. You have to just accept it. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to get to that spot where you feel like, hey, I'm okay in whatever place I'm at right now. And I have to accept that that's okay.
Right. And it could shift at any moment and to be okay with that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm sure your wife is aware of when you start feeling poorly. And
Yeah.
yeah,
She sees it
that's
in
a
my
biggie.
eyes. She sees it in
Yes.
my eyes. She can look in my eyes and she'll just be like, you're not doing well today, are you? And yeah, I'm not doing, she can read my eyes very well.
It's
Like
crazy.
how,
Mine the eyes too. That's the first thing that gives it away.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then
it's
my
just,
taste.
yeah,
I go in sloth
stumbling.
mode. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Now I know that you guys did some things down here in Port Charlotte, a golf tournament too, and I missed it.
Yes.
And
And
I'm down here in Florida and I missed it.
yeah.
Are you guys going to do that again?
I don't know if we'll be doing it at Port Charlotte, but I'm hoping to do another golf tournament eventually. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was a really, really fun day for everyone, and we raised over $6,000 in one day with a silent auction and donations and stuff like that.
Fantastic.
And it was really fun, but it was months of planning, and there
Yeah.
was over 8 or 10 people that pretty much we had the weekly meet to make sure everything was going to go smooth that day, which it did. But it took a lot of work. It was probably harder to put that one golf tournament together than either of my bike trips
Wow.
combined.
So you mentioned two trips. You've taken another trip?
Yes, I the September, the first one was from Denver to Columbus, Ohio, which is the one I wrote the book about. And
Right.
then a year later in September, I wanted to do another one. So I went from Denver to San Francisco on my bike, another 1,400 miles. And that's all the videos are posted. I didn't write anything about it, but the videos from that trip are there. And it's the same. It was the same thing. It was just raw, difficult. It was fantastic. It was everything you can imagine.
Yes.
For a whole month, I'm living in a tent, wherever I end up that day. And so that's the kind of adventure that I thrive on. I love that. But, you're out of your element. You
Sure.
know, my safe place is my couch.
Yeah.
That's my cubby hole. That's my man cave. And on the trip, I just made the tent my man cave. So that's where at night, like in the first book, I mentioned my tent quite a bit because it became my decompressing place where I could just
Safe
get
place.
in. Yeah, get in there at the end of the day, tell everybody to go do what you need to do, but I just need to be here and get myself back to where I need to be to continue tomorrow.
Right.
So yeah, I think most people that I've talked to with Meniere's have a safe place or a chair or their bed or something where they feel safe and they can just kind of regain energy. And a lot of times, I just need to rest my head. As long as my head is resting still, then
Hmm.
my brain's not trying to figure out why I'm wobbly. And that's where a lot of my exhaustion comes from. So, I take a lot of rests.
Good. Good, good, good. I know that was a hard thing for me to learn because I'm a military brat, so I grew up with you have to earn rest. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And that was hard to break out of me. I still fall back to that a little bit. Like I need to do this, this, and this before I rest. Yeah, so that's really hard. But you have to, or you're gonna regret it.
Yeah, and for me, I've always worked hard. I worked hard jobs. I'm blue collar to the core. Drove heavy equipment, worked in warehouses. You go in and you just punch it out for your 8 hours, and then you can go home.
Yeah.
And then you can reward yourself with a cold beer and a
Yep.
rest. Now it's I have to make I need to make rest my first priority instead of my last priority. It's not a reward anymore. It's
Right.
a necessity.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that because it is. It's one of the biggest things that I have to allow myself to do. Yeah.
But you look lazy and you look unmotivated and you look depressed, and the people, my friends that come and hang out with me, a lot of times they'll come, they understand what I go through, but
Mhm.
they'll, oh, how was your day? Well, I laid on my couch for 7 hours and you showed up and I'm still laying on my couch. So that's another part of the mental battle is, I don't want to look weak and I don't want to look like I can't do things, but I have to do this in order to get through my day.
Right.
So
Nope. Yep. Absolutely. No, it's a tough one, especially when your friends don't get it.
yeah,
When they see you, even if they see just a little bit of you having like a normal day or going out
yeah,
to eat, whatever, and then you're down. It's hard. It's hard. I've lost a few friends because of that. They just
I've
don't
lost,
get it.
I've lost many.
Yeah. But you know what? What makes up for that are those friends that take time to learn about this. And they
Mm-hmm.
come back to me and they're like, how in the world are you doing this? How do you do
Yeah,
this on a day-to-day basis?
yeah,
So,
and like my wife and my son, they've seen me do this so long now that they just understand that this is what I need, and
yeah.
they're very understanding. Yet I do have friends that, I've lost a lot of friends that just gave up. because they're just like, well, if I call him, he'll probably say yes, but then I'll call him on a Tuesday, but by Friday he'll be like, oh, I can't go out and I can't get off my couch. And
Yeah.
that, it confuses them to the point where I think they just don't want to put that energy into me anymore, which is
Right.
okay. But then
Yeah.
I do have a handful of friends that do get it and they understand and they're very, very they're willing to put the energy into work around me. So, instead of inviting me out to go out to a bar and listen to loud music and be in a loud environment, they'll come over and we'll build a fire in my fireplace and we'll just talk and I'll lay down and they get it, and we
Yeah.
still I have I have closer friends now, but they're not the ones I had 15 years ago.
Right.
So
Yep. I get that completely. I also had where people stopped inviting me because of that. And I would find out about parties and I'd ask them about, are we okay? And
yeah,
they're like,
yeah.
yeah, we just figured you couldn't come. I'm like, oh no, please keep inviting me. I might
Mhm.
show up. I might surprise you one day. Just if I can, I will. If I can't, I won't. I have to be true to me.
Yes.
So I still get the invites, and on occasion I am able to surprise them, and surprise myself. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's definitely tough. What has living with the vestibular disorder taught you?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a heavy loaded question.
That's a very loaded question. Um, okay, here's my answer in a nutshell. I think in my past life before having Meniere's, I tried to be all things to all people, and I
Hmm.
was a pleaser and very outgoing, the life of the party. I wanted people to be like, "There's fun, Steve. There's Steve who can get up on stage and go crazy, and he's unembarrassed and he just lets it all hang out."
Right.
When this disease hit, I think the hardest thing was having that stripped away. I learned that I have to love myself whether I am doing something or not.
Right.
If I'm laying on the couch for 8 hours, that I can still love myself for that. And that's what I say at the end of my book. I
Yeah.
learned to love myself because I had to find a new, I had to find a new identity instead of the fun loving, outgoing that I was all the time, the hard worker, the party guy. All of a sudden, a disabled guy on my couch. So
Yeah.
how do you love that? And that was the big transition for me, was trying to figure out how to accept me for what I have now and what I have to offer now, because it's all different. It's all different. Music is coming back into my life as a little bit, but it's not going to be because I need accolades anymore or I need people to be saying, oh, that was awesome. It's more because it's a part of my DNA. And I didn't choose to be a musician. I was born that way. It's in my I have to be a musician because it's a way I can be creative, and it's the way I can get myself out there, just like writing. Music and writing are the two things that, I can vomit my emotions out, and I do it with
Right.
music and writing. And so, but I, the thing I learned is that I don't have to do those things. Now I don't have to do those things to feel worthy. Now I
Right.
can do those things because I choose to do them, because it's something that makes me, who I am, come out. And if people like it, they like it. And if they don't, that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't put that pressure on myself anymore.
Good. It's crazy how something like this can change your perspective like that.
Yeah.
And you said a very strong word there of worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to Meniere's, my work ethic and
Yeah.
how much I could fill my schedule
Mm-hmm.
would make me feel more worthy. And
Yeah.
now it's completely opposite.
Yes.
Rest comes first,
Mm-hmm.
and everything else, whatever fills that up, fine. But yeah, that's crazy how that changes.
And another thing I learned is, everyone's selfish to a degree, but I always have tried to be a good friend and a good dad and a good husband and a good son and a good person. But I have a lot more empathy for people outside of my circle now. If I see someone at the store, instead of judging them so quickly and being like, will you get your damn shopping cart out of my way? My first thought, that used to be my first thought,
Mm-hmm.
get out of the way because you're slowing me down because I need to get out of the store.
Right.
Now I'll look at them and be like, well, maybe they are going through something terrible. Maybe
Yep.
they're in the middle of a divorce. Maybe they have a chronic illness that's invisible like I do. Maybe, like my mind will go through a different checklist than it did before. You
Isn't that
know,
crazy? Yep.
in traffic, instead of flipping people off when they
So
cut
you're
me
more
off,
patient.
yeah, it's allowed me to be like, well, maybe they're on their way to the hospital because their wife's in the passenger seat pregnant and she's given to give birth in the car if they don't get to a hospital. So it's like it's changed the way I view humanity as a whole because everyone's going through something. Everyone. There's nobody out there that's happy, whether you have multi billions of dollars or whether you're living as a homeless person. Your life has issues, and those issues are never easy to deal with. And
No.
so being crippled by mine has allowed me to give more people freedom to be themselves and try to understand what they're going through.
Right. Yep. I get that so much.
And on my bike trip, that was one of the things that became very real to me. Seeing new people every single day, people coming up to me and, what are you doing? Well, I'm riding my bike across the country. Oh, that's crazy, and I would, because I have this disease, explain it. And then they would in turn feel comfortable explaining their issues. And so I could listen to them. And I think people just want to be heard.
Yeah.
That's all it comes down to. People, nobody can fix nobody can fix me, but like just talking to you and being heard is a way it's healthy for me. So I think just listening to people and letting them tell me their stories, which once my bike ride was done and the book came out, I get emails and texts and messages all the time from people that just want to share their story. And I'm so okay with that. Never a burden when
Right.
someone, I know you're super busy because you're doing this and that and you're all busy, but I really wanted to tell you what I go through. And
Right.
I tell them most of the time. This isn't what you read and what you see on my videos isn't what I do every single day. That's like an anomaly. Most of the time I'm not doing much at all but taking care of myself. So I do have time for you. So tell me your story.
Right.
Yeah, I have a special treat for you because I knew that you wanted to talk about the book and stuff. So here you go.
Oh my gosh, I was going to ask you about
The infamous, I
that
wore
was
this just
so
for you,
great.
the
That was
infamous Hall and Oates shirt.
your
And
flag.
my flag, and it's still it's still one of my biggest treasures. I would, if our house caught on fire, I would grab my wife, my son, my base, my Bible, and this shirt. And that's all I would need.
Isn't that crazy? The synchronicity. I mean, of you meeting him.
That was
Uh,
such a. I was in a bad place that day. It was a very, very, very tough day with my symptoms, and mentally, I was
right.
just really struggling that day. And like a lot of things were going wrong, and it's just really hard to troubleshoot when you have Meniere's disease because we don't multitask well in our
Right.
heads. So like I can do one thing at a time. Like I can talk to you right now, but I'm not thinking about my bank account. I'm not thinking about a car payment. I'm not thinking about this weekend. I'm thinking about just talking to you because that's all I had the capacity to do. And
Right.
that day, a lot of things were coming at me and I was overwhelmed. And that just meeting Josh that day just slowed everything down and reminded me what I was doing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's a great portion of the book. I felt every moment of it because it is so true with these disorders. You can only focus on one thing at a time, and if you get overwhelmed with everything coming at you, and with something like that happening, and he seemed like a very patient soul.
Oh, he was brilliant, brilliant. Just a very patient soul. We talked for over an hour, just standing on the sidewalk. And of course, my brother's crapping himself, like, where is he? He was only 5 miles behind me.
Right.
And it that was one of the things that was special about the trip and the book also is the role that Dave played because he allowed me to do it the way
Yep.
I had to. And that was a big learning curve for him, you know, and it's kind of like my wife even now there's still it's he has to work around my disability,
Right.
you know, part of our marriage. This coming summer, we'll be married 25 years, but I've known her since she was 14. So
Wow.
we know each other very well, yet this has added a whole new aspect to how we live as a couple and raise our son. And, you know, we're getting into, I'm 55 now. You know, this is our son's 20. He's almost going to be out of the house soon. This is the time where we should be saying, now we're free. Let's go do all the things that make us happy.
Right.
Yet I'm very limited now in what that is. So it's difficult, and that's something that a lot of people don't realize.
Let
The
me let me question you. Might be putting you on the spot here.
That's okay. I told you I'm up for anything.
All right. Well, what you just said to me was that you're limited to what you can do. Steve, do you realize that you rode 1,400 miles 2 times?
Yeah,
I gave my roller skates away and my high heels because I can't because I can't use them anymore. But
yeah.
what you did, you have empowered so many people with your story and sharing that. I don't think there's nothing you can't do.
I can't snowboard.
All right, well that okay, snowboarding might be a different thing, but
You
there's
need a lot of good balance
traveling.
for snowboarding. So my wife snowboards 3 or 4 days a week, and she has to go alone. You know, and it breaks my heart
Yeah.
because that's what we used to do. Big
Have you tried?
hiking. I tried the first couple of years when I got diagnosed, and I was like, I'm just gonna I'm gonna kill myself because I just, you know, 1 second I'm fine, and then my balance goes, and I don't know where I'm gonna end up. And if it's a tree at 30 miles an hour, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
be. So there are things that I definitely like your rollerblades. You know, I just had to give it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you know, that's the kind of stuff that you know, my wife has to do it alone now, and it's hard on her because she has to do. We used to do, you know, 3 night overnight camping treks into the backcountry, go into the mountains for three nights by ourselves, and just hike to lakes and stuff like that. I can't do that. I can walk a mile or two on a
Right.
trail if it's fairly flat, but I can't do some of the things that we used to do that really was a big part of our marriage and who we are as a couple. Yet she's a she's a guitar player, so she's a musician also. So there are still things that we do share that we can still do together,
Yeah.
but there's certain things that we can't. So we've just had to rebox how we do things together.
Hey, let me tell you, I am going to put this out here right here on this live feed. Where do you guys live? What state?
We live in Colorado.
All right. We are going to be
So
coming through Colorado, I would say the end of summer going into September. We're going to be traveling.
okay,
We're going camping. You and your wife and my husband and I are going camping. So put
no,
that down. I will be in touch. We're going to get you out there.
that would be, what part of Colorado are you coming to? We're up in the mountains, really close to Breckenridge and Vail. Like we're up in the ski resorts area.
We haven't made that plan yet, so we can adjust it. So we're
There's
going
so
to
much
do it.
camping here. There's so much good camping, and we still camp. You know, we just car camp now and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, we'll do it.
All
We'll do
right.
it.
I'm serious. So serious. Well, let me see. I wanted to ask you a couple more things. Let me go back through my notes real quick. Oh, I do love in your book how Dave writes, like along with how you are writing, how the journey's going for you. I love how Dave narrates in there also, because it just adds more emotion to it, and it's so real. I got chills.
It's very unique. I think, you
I
know,
love it.
not to toot my own horn, but when I started writing the book, I asked Dave, I'm like, would you, first of all, he's got a journalist degree. So he's been a journalist since his whole life. So he's a professional writer. I never was. I just like to write. Um, I think I'm a good writer, but Dave's a great writer. But I said, if I write this book, I want you to read through it. And then if you would just insert where you think you should and where you think it would impact the people. And he did such a good job. I didn't tell him what to write. I didn't write. We didn't write each other's parts at all. I wrote my part and he wrote his part. But every time he sent me a segment and he's like, I wrote this 2 pages and I want to put it here. When I read it, I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. That's brilliant because it's so unique to like most travel books or adventure books where it's a one perspective through the whole thing. Where here
Right.
you get the combating perspectives and there was tension, you
Yeah, and
know.
you guys were in sync with each other's energies too.
Yes,
No,
but
yeah,
there was also like this like almost uncomfortable tension, like that on the third day when I had my big breakdown, like
yeah.
that was really difficult for him and the other guys on the trip also. But for him especially because he felt so responsible to get me where I was supposed to be. And the way he wrote his perspective on that was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He's such a good writer.
That's what you both are. Collectively together, it works.
Yeah.
I know you have a lot going on as far as where we can support you. I know you have your website, which I will leave everything in the show notes. You have Facebook, Meniere's on the Vertigo. Instagram, is it also Meniere's on the Vertigo or is it just on the Vertigo? Okay.
On
And then
Instagram, it's on the Vertigo.
on the Vertigo. And
Facebook, I put the Meniere's before it, so that if someone Googled Meniere's, I would come up in that category. But
right.
Instagram is more of my just fun. Here's what our videos are.
And then your YouTube channel, is it on the Verta show or is it
The
a
YouTube channel is
segment?
on the Vertigo,
Okay.
and the my podcast is on the Verta Show.
Okay. I will put all those. And the book, of course, is called On the Vertigo, One Sick Man's Journey to Make a Difference. This chronicles your first cross-country trip.
Yep, and it can be found on Amazon.
Yeah, it's a great read. I read it a while back, and I didn't really understand all the YouTube stuff and the correlation until I reread it. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is all meshed together. And that's the way it should be read. Read it,
Yes,
watch it. Read it, watch it.
yes. You can follow the videos as if we bring up like my breakdown video on day 3 was I still have a hard time watching that because
Yeah,
it was
that's a tough one. Tell me,
but
Steve, your that vertigo attack, I mean, it was filmed and it received over 10,000 views. I mean,
yes,
like almost immediately.
yeah.
How does that, what are your thoughts around that?
The first one is just embarrassment because you don't want to be seen like that.
Yeah,
But being true to myself, I had to be true to myself.
yeah.
And, that's that the vertigo attack chapter is probably the most commented on when people talk to me about the book because they're like, I experienced vertigo 5 years ago for like a half an hour, and it was the most miserable half hour of my life. I can't believe you've done this hundreds of times. Like that has been probably the most impactful chapter is when I was riding my bike and had the vertigo attack. And it was hard to write. That was the hardest part to write because I wanted to write it in a way that made sense to someone that didn't have vertigo. But
Mhm.
I also wanted people that like you and I that get vertigo to be like, yes, that's a way to explain it because it's so hard to explain
It
how
is.
awful it is. And you can't do it. And I even say in the book, I'm like, I'm not even coming close to explaining what this is really like, but I did my best so that people would say, wow, that was really impactful.
It was intense, but a lot of people don't get to see that part of it,
Yeah.
see the aftermath and the injuries of drop attacks but to
Mm-hmm.
actually witness that and to be there with you was just was pretty awesome. I gotta
Yeah.
thank you for putting it out there like that. It was crazy. So what is this new year? What do you have anything coming up in this new year?
Uh, I don't have anything major planned right now. Dave and I have kind of taken a step back just to do stuff personally, and for me just to kind of decompress. A friend of mine came over a couple nights ago, and I haven't seen him since before the first trip. We've been good friends for a long time, but he moved away. But he was in town. He came over, and we were just discussing stuff. And he's like, "Do you realize how much you've done in the last 3 years?" He's like, "You've done so much stuff, and it's mind blowing to see the amount of things that you have put your time into, and all the things that you've done." And I didn't look at it that way till he said that. And I was like, "Wow, I did." But like I said, the first trip was just for me, and it just snowballed and snowballed
Yeah.
into so much more. And I was on the Life Rebalanced Chronicles docu series. Um,
Yes. That was
and
so well done. I will
yes,
link
yeah,
that in there in the notes also. Everyone needs to see that.
yes, yeah, that was a really cool project. So like just things snowballed that I didn't expect. So right now it's been 3 years, and I'm kind of taking a step back, and I'm still posting some videos and updating what I'm doing with my music so that people that want to follow that can still follow that.
Right.
Another thing that I did that started last summer was trying to get more exposure outside of our Meniere's invisible kingdom. You
Hmm.
know, we live in a Meniere's world that's all of our own,
Right.
and people know me in this world, but I want Meniere's to get more face time outside of our vestibular world.
It's
And
hard.
so yes, it's hard to do that. It's hard to bridge that gap being such a rare illness. But I ended up sponsoring a good friend of mine who moved away. She moved to Milwaukee. Her and her husband moved to Milwaukee, and she got into doing triathlons. Yeah, and so we had race jerseys made up for her and stuff like that. And so it's cool because now when she does her races, people will ask her what's on the Vertigo because it's on her jersey,
Right.
and a big dizzy spiral on it. And then it gives her a chance to say, well, a friend of mine, he sponsors, I race for him and his cause. And so she's sharing outside of our world into this triathlon world about
That's
Meniere.
fantastic.
I'm just trying to think of ways to get outside of our little,
Our
vestibular
bubble.
world, a
Yeah.
little bubble of sickness and misery, and spread the word outside of what we do in our podcasts that are mainly about what we deal with and stuff like that. So I'm always brainstorming on stuff like that. But that was my first step in jumping outside of the Meniere's world. And she was super grateful to do it. And she was been awesome. So, I'll sponsor her again next summer for her triathlons and let her keep spreading the word.
That's
And
fantastic.
we'll come up with some other ideas on getting what we deal with outside of our world.
That's a great flip on it because it's true because the people that the majority of people that see us are suffers vestibular disorders and or family members and not much outside of there. It's very true.
Yeah,
I'll have to brainstorm too.
just trying to figure out bridges that I can build that go outside. And I figured the first start would be with her and her
That's a
triathlon.
great idea. That's
So,
fantastic. Well, is there anything else you want to share?
no, I think it was a great time, and I really, really appreciate you having me on. And I love doing this kind of thing. And I need you to come on my show now,
No
which we'll do.
problem.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead and hit me with your whirlwind questions. I like
All
that.
right. Okay. Fill in the blank. Vestibular disorders are.
Sucky,
So they are.
suck ass.
You feel your symptoms coming on and you're trying to be brave, but what's the first thing that Steve does?
I put on a smile and act like I'm fine. I do
You
it all
really?
the time. I do it all the time. I'll probably do it sometime today. I'll be feeling really bad, and if someone calls me or someone comes over, or if I bump into someone, I will put on a smile and act like I'm fine. And they don't understand, and it's just too much energy in it all. So That's the
Yeah.
first thing I do.
Have you at any point gone through that little phase of being completely truthful? I know I did
Oh
that.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
exhausting.
I do. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, but it just gets old after a while. And at this time, at this point in my journey with my disease, I think that the people that need to know enough about it by now. And
Right.
if I run into someone randomly and it's not about Meniere's, like say I just run into an old friend or something, I don't
Right.
even bring it up anymore. I just put on a smile because it's just easier and it's fake, but you can't go into a half an hour monologue every time you see
No,
someone.
it's just it's exhausting, and sometimes you just like, God, I sound crazy.
Yeah,
That's the way I
yeah.
feel when I'm telling these people that. Yeah, I get that.
And I can see it in their face. They're like, "Oh, you look fine."
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I
It's like
know.
I'm over that. It
Yeah, I hear you.
doesn't bother
I get that
me.
completely.
Okay.
What is one thing people usually get wrong about you?
God, that's loaded. Uh, right now, where I'm at in life, I think what people get wrong about me the most is that they think I'm healthier than I actually am.
Yeah.
I can tell them how bad I feel, but it's not, or they see me doing bike rides and writing books and stuff, and they think that at this level doing great when I'm not, you
Yeah.
know. That's what
Yeah.
they get wrong. And like I just said for the last question, it's exhausting. So I just let it be. I'm just okay.
I think I know the answer to this one. We're going to ask it anyway. What's your favorite meal?
My favorite meal?
Yeah.
Wow, that's not loaded at all. My son just brought me a piece of sausage, so that's what I'm nibbling on right
Oh, I
now.
miss sausage.
He came behind the camera and slid it to me a minute ago. Wow, that's tough.
I know in your book you mentioned hot wings.
Hot wings.
A nice beer.
BW3's is my favorite restaurant.
Yeah.
I love hot wings. We got an air fryer, so I make hot wings like 2 or 3 times a week now. So I absolutely love hot wings. But I think hands down my favorite meal, it's kind of kooky, but just a good coney dog, a good hot
Coney
dog
dog.
with chili on it and cheese and onions and stuff. I don't, I have no sweet tooth, so I don't eat any sweets.
Oh, that's nice.
I
That's
don't
nice.
eat candy, cakes, cookies, anything like that. And that started when I was a young kid. I just never had so for I have two brothers and a sister, so it was always a big birthday cake for birthdays. But for me, it was a birthday pizza because I didn't like cake. So I either had cake, I either had a birthday pizza or birthday conies. So those are probably pizza conies and hot wings.
Nice. Do you find that sodium impacts your symptoms?
At first it was really worrisome for the first few years. I really watched my sodium. Like I said, I cut down to white rice and bland chicken was all I would eat for
Right.
weeks. And then I would add little things in. I watch my sodium, but I'm not fanatical about it anymore like I was before because I kind of know my limits now.
Yeah.
So instead of eating a whole bag of Ruffles chips, now I'll eat a handful. Like I've kind of I've I've learned that I can still enjoy the things that I thought was making me sick, but I just have to do it in lower doses.
Right.
And I'm okay with that now. I'm so used to it. But no, I don't count my sodium during the day. I don't. I did for years, and I realized this is just going to drive me crazy. So now, do I push it? I don't. I push it sometimes a little too much. I love Mexican food. Love
Oh,
going
me
to Mexico,
too.
and it's very salty. So I just know that I might feel a little crappier the next day, but that's it's a give and take. I don't at this point I feel crappy so much all the time that feeling a little bit more crappy because I had a really good Mexican meal at a restaurant. I'm okay with that now, so I'm willing to kind of throw myself under the bus for treating myself, but I don't count.
Mexicans Mexicans my favorite. And the problem with me going to Mexican are the margaritas I have to have with my Mexican.
for sure, for
So
sure.
I don't get the salt on the rim, but still the sweetness does the same thing. So I'm like, I might have to change to Modelo.
No, same here. My wife and I there's a Mexican restaurant in town that we go to for happy hours, and they have like half off margaritas, and I always
Yeah,
get mine with no salt on the rim because that's just, and I don't add salt, table salt to anything.
right.
If it has sodium in it, then I just eat it, but I don't add salt like I used to. But
Yeah,
yeah, margaritas are probably next to beer my favorite for
yeah,
sure. And a good Bloody Mary if it's made right.
right. What is the last show you binged and loved?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. It's hard because I do that. I binge like shows a lot.
I know you
Um,
love Big Bang. That's one of my favorites too.
I've seen every episode 10 times or more. If I'm feeling really, really bad, I've seen them so many times I don't have to watch it. So I'll put
Right.
my earbud in and
Yep.
just let the shows play. And
You just
I'll
kind
never,
of zone out.
yeah, and I can just fill in everything that's going on because I've seen them so many times. So
Yep.
that's my go-to binge is Big Bang Theory. That's my all-time favorite show. But I just recently I found that with my memory being so crappy now that I can go back and binge stuff that I saw 10, 15 years ago and it's all brand new.
Oh,
So what I did a couple weeks ago is I went back and watched all the reruns I binged the whole series of ER, which was
oh,
great.
did you?
Yeah, I like the medical shows. I like The Good Doctor. I
Oh my,
like I love Grey's Anatomy.
oh, I just binged Grey's Anatomy.
It's so good.
It
It's
is.
just,
It's so crazy good.
it got kind of lame the last couple seasons, but when it was on, it was on. But my
Yeah.
favorite show, this is going to be embarrassing to say, but my wife will kill me if I don't because she makes fun of me all the time. I'm a huge Judge Judy fan.
Are you really?
Judge Judy every single day. I never miss it. It's
That's
like
funny.
I plan my life around watching Judge Judy, which people
I
think is hilarious.
I would never have guessed that. I think it's just too much drama for me.
Yeah. Well, and one of my best friends, who I've known, we've raised our kids together. His name's Ed. He's a judge in our town. And so he hates the fact that I love Judge Judy. He's like, "That's crap. That's not even real." No, no, no.
That's not
And
real stuff.
I bring up Judge Judy every time I'm with him. I'm like, so he thinks I'm an idiot for liking Judge Judy. But
That's so funny.
that's my guilty pleasure is Judge Judy, and the Pitch Perfect first two Pitch Perfect
Oh,
movies.
now
Like
you're
I'm,
really throwing me for a loop. Are you serious?
yeah, like those are my guilty pleasures that I don't tell people. Most people.
That's funny. Well, you just told the vestibular community.
I know. That's okay though. See,
Yeah,
I've got a weird side to myself.
that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. What is on your nightstand?
What's on the nightstand right now? 3 bottles of meds that I take every day. So I have
Right.
3 bottles of meds. I have well, I have like a little placemat thing that says Glenfiddich on it from the whiskey because I got it on our honeymoon when we went to Scotland and we went to the Glenfiddich distillery. And so
Well,
it's like a bar towel. So that's and then on top of that is my meds, my reading glasses because I can't read without glasses anymore because my eyes are going bad. Um, what else is on there? I try not to have a whole lot of stuff. My earbuds, my phone charger, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing too weird. My nightstand's really small,
okay.
so that's a good
What's an ac-
question.
What's an activity that completely relaxes you?
Golf,
Does it really?
yeah, that's the one.
Did you play when you're in Port Charlotte?
I did. I played the day before, but the day of the tournament, I was doing, a lot of networking with people and meet and greets and stuff. But yeah, I did play around the day before. But I played soccer in high school. I played baseball, basketball. I was on swim team. I was very, very, very athletic. And before I got diagnosed here in Colorado, up until into my 40s, I played on like adult soccer leagues and volleyball leagues and stuff like that. All that stuff went away when I lost my balance. But golf is the one thing that I can still do without really torturing myself and making myself feel
Right.
bad.
Yeah.
But I suck at it, and you need good balance to be a good golfer. So I don't expect myself to be a good golfer. I don't practice. I don't go to the driving range, but that's the one sport. But I'm so competitive that I still go out and play whenever I can with my friends and my brothers. My brothers are both good golfers, but I still try to beat them so bad, but I never can because my balance is so bad. But
I will tell you,
golfing,
I have a friend that has Meniere's, and she says golfing really helped her with her coordination and her balance. So she makes
yeah,
a point of going out. So
yeah, I think it's kind of like riding my bike. I like to ride my bike a lot too. I did it on the trips, and I'm not, like I said in the book, I'm never an avid bicyclist. But my wife and I both have e-bikes now. So in the summer now we can't, but in the summer we go out almost every day and ride 25 miles or so. There's a big lake that we ride around right by our house, and it's 25-mile loop. And so we do
wow,
that. We do that quite often, at
very
least,
cool.
and that relaxes me. I put music on, put my heavy metal on, and just get in my own little world. And for some reason, I don't understand at all, but when I'm riding my bike, my balance feels really good. I think it's because when I walk, my right and left legs kind of fight each other for
Hmm.
balance. My brain's trying to figure out how to work it. But when I'm riding my bike, I think the reason I could do my trips is because when I'm riding, I think since your feet are working in unison, my brain accepts the fact that okay, this is easy, and it's I feel the most healthiest when I'm just riding my bike because for some reason my brain doesn't fight my balance when I ride my bike. And so it allows my brain to feel relaxed. So it's a therapy almost.
That's crazy. Would think it was the opposite, but
You think it would be the opposite. You think I just
yeah,
run into it, just trees and bushes and cars and
right.
like
That's
that. Go to
great.
traffic, but it's the opposite. It's like really, it's the most normal I feel is when I'm riding my bike.
Well, you got to keep it up then. All right. I
Yeah.
have three more questions. Let's see. What movie could you watch over and over and never tire of?
Die Hard. Um, I've
Best
seen that
Christmas
movie
movie ever.
in my book. In my book, um, yeah, that's the number one. I can just watch that over and over again. I love sports movies, like you saw in the book. So, like I
Yeah.
watch. I love Moneyball with Brad Pitt. I've seen that many times. It's just a good movie. I
Yeah.
love baseball movies. Kevin
Cool.
Costner
Oh
stuff,
yeah,
and
Kevin Costner's the best in all those.
yeah, yeah.
Cool. What is your most used tool out of your vestibular toolbox?
My pillow.
Your pillow?
Mm-hmm. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. What is it that you use the most? I mean, some people use, meditation, breath work, medication. Um, I use a warm sanded neck pillow over my eyes when I'm having an attack.
For me, it's a pillow and my blue hoodie. I have a blue hoodie that I wear. I wore it every on. I got it right before my first bike trip, and I wore it every single day. I slept in it. I rode my bike in it when it was chilly. It's I call its name is Linus because it's kind of it's like my security blanket.
Right?
When I have it on, it just makes me feel relaxed. And so I think it drives my wife crazy because I wear it like nonstop. I put a t-shirt on, then I put my hoodie on over top of it, and I wear it all the time, all day. And so my hoodie and my blanket and my pillow, my
Cool.
hoodie.
I want your playlist. I'm listening to all the music and the videos and in the book, all your music. I'm like, oh, I want Steve's playlist.
All over the place. It is
I'm
all over
sure.
the place,
And that's why I love it because it's a little rock, it's everywhere.
everywhere. I love 80s. I love, you know, Madonna. I mean, it's Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, all the way up to Iron
Metallica, yeah, it's everywhere.
Slayer. I mean, I'm all over the map.
Great.
Any my favorite genre is 80s hair metal. That's my first band I was in. It was a hair
Yeah.
metal band in the 80s, and I just love anything Slaughter, Motley Crue, all those old headbanging. Just
Yeah.
the 80s genre.
Yes, my
Horrible.
husband is a 80s big hair rocker.
Yeah, I was back in the day. I'll send you a picture.
Yeah, I'll have to send you his. It's pretty. It's like, woo, okay. I still love it. I still love it. And your last question today, Steve, is what are you extremely grateful for today?
My family. Um, oh God.
It's all right. Your family's pretty awesome.
About a month and a half ago, when I started picking up music again,
Yeah.
I was plugging my bass in to my amp and playing, and then I joined with my friend and started playing, but I was having a really hard time. And without me knowing it, my wife bought me an acoustic bass. So it's like an acoustic guitar, but it's a bass
Right.
because it's softer sounding and it's not as hard on my hearing. And just the fact that she thought of that,
Aw.
because she wants me to follow that passion.
Yeah.
And it was just such a cool thing for her to do, to think this might help him
Right.
doing this. So yeah, it was
It's great
special.
that she would know to do that, but she plays, right? Look at you. Got me going. Stop
Yeah.
it. Um,
Yeah,
she
it was
plays, right?
yeah, but super unexpected and like the most thoughtful thing anybody's ever done.
It's
So,
fantastic.
so
Oh,
I have reasons to say family, not just because it's the cliche answer.
no,
It's
no, I get that.
actually,
You feel that in your book. And I watching your brother and you interact on video. You don't see a lot of that today, and it's awesome.
yeah, and our youngest brother Brian played a big part too. He's the one that actually came up with the name on the Vertigo, and he's artistic, and so he's the one that had the Mallory in the book. He drove the camper and stuff. So he actually has played a really big part. He just gets very little credit. So I wanted to put that out there.
Well, that's pretty awesome. Well, it's been so much fun, Steve, and I'm so glad we finally connected. And I look forward to learning more about you and being on your show.
Yeah, for sure.
I am serious about Colorado and camping. We'll just have
So
to
am I.
figure it out for
So am I.
sure.
Let
I
me
will
know.
be in touch with that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We're right in the middle of the state, so wherever you want to go, we'll meet you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for joining me, Heather Davies, and my guest Steve on this week's episode of Meniere's Muse. If you would like to reach out, please see the show notes for Steve's website, podcast, all about his book, and how to find us on Instagram. If you would like more information on vestibular disorders, please visit Vestibular Disorders Association website at www.vestibular.org. I would like to say thank you for listening, and if you believe this episode may benefit another warrior, please feel free to share. Be sure to subscribe for updates, and I'll see you next week, warriors.